Well, good morning. This is Dave Jones with StormCenter Communications and GeoCollaborate. It is Tuesday morning, just past about 11:30. It's about 11:39 right now. This update is based on the National Hurricane Center's 11 o'clock update, and it is for the All Hazards Consortium Fleet Response Working Group sensitive information sharing environment so we can improve the sharing of information across private sector organizations and across state emergency operations centers and federal agencies that look to work with the private sector. We're making data sharing and collaboration much more efficient by working through the sensitive information sharing environment hub and all of the stakeholders within the sensitive information sharing environment. Well, we have Tropical Storm Helene now. Hurricane Hunter aircraft have detected not only a low-level circulation, which we can see in satellite imagery, you can see it here as well. I'll take even closer in just a second. But they've detected 40-knot winds from the aircraft. So now we have a closed circulation and we have 40-knot winds. So that indeed makes it a tropical storm. Tropical Storm Helene is forecast to intensify over the next 12 to 24 hours and to do it rapidly at some stage between that time period. We can already see some impressive circulation going on from the GOES satellite. This is a satellite that's 22,300 miles up in space. Has its eyes pointed right down at the Earth so it can monitor the storm and its every move. And we can see what's going on. Let me point this out just a little bit. You can see around here, these are strong thunderstorms to the east of the center. We have some other storms developing along the west and southwest part of the center. And just this overall circulation tells me that this is going to be a very large hurricane, one with a very broad wind field. And that does not bode well for the west coast of Florida as the storm comes out of the Yucatan Strait and into the Gulf of Mexico as winds pile up water in the Gulf of Mexico. So we have a lot to talk about here. I'm going to try to do it as quickly as possible, but all of this information is pretty critical. So I'm going to take you a little bit closer here and show you the 1 minute satellite imagery. This is 1 minute imagery coming in from the NOAA spacecraft satellite. And you see also some flashes. That is lightning that's being detected by the sensors on the GOES satellite, the global lightning mapper. And it shows just intense thunderstorms going on. Sometimes in tropical activity, tropical storms and hurricanes, you have a lot of lightning. Other times you don't have a lot of lightning. And here in its formative stages, I'm not surprised at all to see this amount of lightning. But you can see in the circulation here, we're looking at maybe this area being the center, the closed center of circulation. All of these are thunderstorms, intense thunderstorms to the east of the center. And we see even more thunderstorms now forming to the northwest of the center and also to the southwest. So the system is definitely on track to intensify. The National Hurricane Center expects and forecasts Helene to be a hurricane as it's passing through the Yucatan Strait into the Gulf of Mexico. That'll be in about 24 hours or so. Then once it makes that curve into the Gulf of Mexico, it will probably pick up in its forward speed of movement while it is rapidly intensifying. And so I'm going to take this full screen here and show you the mesoscale sector here, the high resolution satellite loop. You can see more thunderstorm activity up here to the northeast in these intense thunderstorms. But there you go. There it is. We're going to see this thunderstorm activity intensify around this center. Almost looks like this could be a center too. But the low level circulation is down around in here. There could be some multiple vortexes, but the plains indeed have found a low-level circulation. So I want to show you GeoCollaborate because this is where we're going to talk about impacts. This is GeoCollaborate, and I did not put the center track forecast from the National Hurricane Center in this particular update because the center of the storm needs to be located very accurately. I'll scroll down here. You can see how this estimated center has meandered along. Here's the official center of Tropical Storm Helene. However, as more and more aircraft data comes in and satellite imagery and the fixes get more accurate, the exact track of the Hurricane Center forecast could change. So what we really want you to focus on is this probability cone. There's a 66% chance the center of the storm will move anywhere in between these lines. Could be along these lines, could be in the middle somewhere. And that is why we have a lot of impacts from this storm expected throughout Florida. Now, there are tropical storm warnings in effect right now in the Florida Keys. The forecast wind radii is forecast to be quite large for this storm. As a matter of fact, the wind is expected to extend out in the 90th percentile of hurricanes at similar latitudes. That means this is a big one. It's going to be a big one as far as the hurricane and tropical storm force winds extend. That is why there are tropical storm warnings in the Florida Keys west of the 7 Mile Bridge. There's a tropical storm watch east of the 7 Mile Bridge in this area right here, and then tropical storm watches that extend to the north. There is a hurricane watch in effect in this purple area, extending all the way from down towards Naples, all the way up towards Fort Myers, including Tampa, St. Petersburg, Paso Grill, all the folks there. You're under a hurricane watch around the Big Bend to right here. And so that is a large area. And the reason why it's so large is because as this storm moves up towards the north, the wind is going to impact a lot of the state of Florida, probably most of the state of Florida. As a matter of fact, the governor of Florida has issued a state of emergency now and extended it to every county in the state of Florida. Every county in the state of Florida is now under a state of emergency. So these are all the Weather Service watches and warnings here. And on the coastal areas, there are hurricane watches, tropical storm warnings here. But look at this. Tropical storm watches extend all the way out to Orlando. If you know people out that live in Orlando, if you live in Orlando and you're thinking, oh, this is a West Coast Florida storm, no, there are going to be impacts in Orlando and surrounding counties, even up towards Jacksonville, where there's the chance of flooding because of heavy rain and storm surge coming in off the east coast of Florida. So that could back up the rivers, the river going in there into Jacksonville. But then again, up into Georgia, there are flood watches in effect already. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to turn off those watches, warnings, and advisories, but I do want to turn on various threats. First of all, we are talking about the wind field. I want to turn on the wind radii forecast. Take a look at this. This is a forecast at each one of the Hurricane Center's forecast points. It's a major hurricane in this area right here, west of Tampa. But look how far the wind radii extends. When the storm is up here about to make landfall, Orlando, Tampa, St. Pete, Charlotte Harbor, Port Charlotte, down towards, including Sarasota, Bradenton here, are under tropical storm force winds. So that's going to start earlier on, where the onset of the outskirts of the tropical storm force winds start in Florida. And I can turn on the area where the winds are expected to arrive. This is going to be coming up across the Florida Peninsula. But you can see just how large the storm is. And as we move towards, we move inland, Look at this. Tropical storm force winds all the way to south central Georgia and continuing perhaps into South Carolina, western South Carolina, higher elevations in South Carolina where there's little to knock the wind down. Even in southwestern North Carolina, tropical storm force winds could impact many, many trees. And so we could have a broad area of damage in this location. Now, I'm going to shift this up a little bit. I'll turn off the wind radii forecast, and I want to focus in just for a second on the coast because we have storm surges that are likely along Florida. And this is what the storm surge probabilities look like and the forecast from the National Hurricane Center. This area in yellow here is a storm surge of 2 to 4 feet, and that storm surge is possible all the way from tomorrow through Thursday. We could see 2 to 4 feet of storm surge here in this location. I can get a little bit closer, including Cape Coral, Port Charlotte, Charlotte Harbor, 2 to 4 feet. Now, as we move to the north in this orange area, this area is a 4 to 7 foot storm surge, and that includes Sarasota, all the beaches there along Sarasota, Anna Maria Island. And then when we move into Tampa Bay, a 5 to 8 foot storm surge is forecast as this storm, Helene, moves to the west. Now remember, the wind radii, the wind is going to extend far out from the center, and that's going to push, particularly when the storm gets west and northwest of Tampa, when those winds start funneling right into Tampa Bay. 5 to 8 feet of storm surge is possible and forecast here along Florida. That includes Clearwater, Palm Harbor, Seminole, all the way down towards the beaches here, St. Pete Beach, Paso Grill, all the way down to Sarasota and the beaches there. As we move further to the north, this is where we get towards Holiday, Newport Richey, Hudson. This is a larger storm surge. 6 to 10 feet of storm surge is expected in this area. This is going to impact critical infrastructure, electricity, communications lines that are up and down the roads there could be impacted. And here is the big one. This is around the Big Bend, Homosassa Springs. This is where a lot of manatees go in the winter and the spring. That's a beautiful area. Storm surge here could be 10 to 15 feet. I'm going to back up here so you can see where this extends. 10 to 15 foot storm surge expected in this area, and then it comes down slightly to 5 to 10 feet. These are life-threatening storm surges that will impact the Gulf Coast of Florida over the next several days. Remember, the storm will be moving at a pretty good clip when it's coming up near landfall, but the wind radii is going to be very large. So that is the peak surge probability there and what's going on. Now, if you live in the Tampa Bay area, you want to pay attention to your evacuation zones. There will likely be evacuations ordered in certain areas. We do not know where. Nothing has been issued as of yet. We'll pass that along once we hear about that. But that is what's going to be impacted by this storm. Big storm surges and persistent over numerous tide cycles as well. So that's what we're looking at for peak surge. I'll turn that off because I want to talk specifically about some impacts as far as rainfall goes. Now, this is the forecast for flooding rain. Look at this. I'll back out a little bit more. This is a probability that we'll see flooding rain. It encompasses the entire state of Florida. And where this red area goes in through Georgia, including Atlanta, including Macon, many towns in central Georgia, and into touching Greenville in South Carolina, heavy destructive rain is going to happen when this storm makes landfall. So you're going to have much further inland impacts than you have with previous storms that have gone through here, because the intensity of the storm is going to remain even as it gets up towards central Georgia. It will be decreasing in intensity, but tropical storm force winds will extend, and this is potential for flooding rain. And I do want to expand this out too, because this is for the storm itself, but I want to show you what the Weather Prediction Center's forecast is for 3-day excessive rainfall. And I've just extended it from the Weather Prediction Center's perspective up a little bit further. Anywhere in yellow, you can see it's likely that we'll have flooding rains. That means we could have rescues, water rescues. If you're staging vehicles anywhere in this area to come in to respond, make sure that it's not in any flood-prone areas. Because we have more moisture in the atmosphere, because it's warmer, the rain is going to be more intense. We could see rainfall of 3-4 inches per hour. And continue that for a couple of hours, all of a sudden, your trucks won't be able to move. You may not be able to respond when people need it the most. So that rainfall potential, flooding potential, excessive rainfall, extends all the way up into Ohio and western Pennsylvania and West Virginia over the next 3 to 4 days. Now, keep in mind, the storm is still forming here down in the Caribbean, and this is what the projection is for the impacts on the ground. Now, that is for the 3-day excessive rainfall. I'm going to turn off the flooding rain threat, and I want to turn on the surge threat. This is the storm surge threat. And notice, I mentioned Jacksonville before with the rivers getting backed up because of onshore flow. Look at the size of the storm with the wind field. We have storm surge threats from South Carolina or Georgia down through Florida on the East Coast, all the way down towards Melbourne, where Kennedy Space Center and Space Force Station is located. And then on the West Coast, this is all surge potential here. And as I dive in here to Tampa Bay, you can see this area is very susceptible to storm surge. We could have large areas of deep inundation with storm surge flooding, accentuated by battering waves. Structural damage to buildings could happen with several washing away. That is an official National Weather Service outlook for the potential storm surge. Now, we will have rain bands setting up as the storm moves off the coast of western Florida. So anywhere from Naples to Cape Coral, Port Charlotte and Charlotte Harbor, Sarasota, Bradenton, Clearwater, St. Pete, you could have rain bands that set up over you and give you anywhere from 10 to 15 inches of rain is possible. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but when these rain bands set up, it is possible and over the duration of the storm. You remember, it's going to be a large circulation. So that's what the impacts look like from a surge perspective. Look at this, from Charleston, South Carolina, all the way down to Florida's East Coast, around the West Coast, including the entire state, where storm surge is going to be an issue. So resources will be stressed. We need to think about the impacts here as far as staging, making sure, for example, in Jacksonville, along the river, that you don't stage anything. You move things out of the way because the surge coming in, combined with rainfall, will create some severe flooding potential over the next several days. Remember, the storm is still down here, so we have tomorrow to go through, and then on the day Wednesday afternoon into Thursday and Friday is when these big impacts are going to happen. So let me see if there's one more I wanted to show, and that is I showed the wind threat, the surge threat, and the flooding threat. So I'm going to take you back here because I do want to just reiterate that we do have the flood risk potential, the 3-day flood risk. So on Wednesday, it's going to be in southwest Florida and western Florida. Thursday, Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. Friday, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, South Carolina, potentially western North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, and Kentucky. And I'm talking about extreme southwestern Virginia. And then dry air is going to take over from high pressure to the north. So this is a 3-day flood risk of inland impacts. And also, the National Weather Service watches, warnings, and advisories have all been extended and updated. So I won't spend a lot of time on this. There's tropical storm warning in effect now for the Florida Keys west of 7 Mile Bridge. And then the inland wind impacts will be pretty large. The entire state of Florida will be susceptible to tropical storm force wind gusts. We're going to be monitoring this very closely because the intensity of the storm, the official forecast from the National Hurricane Center, is actually for a Category 3 storm. And that Category 3 storm is going to have winds of 115 miles per hour. Some of the models and guidance suggest we could have a higher category of storm, but we'll see what happens as this storm gets its act together. And on satellite imagery, it really does look like it is getting its act together. So pay close attention. That's it for this 11 o'clock update for the sensitive information sharing environment. We put information up in the crawl above and the crawl down below here, making sure that the states of emergency and declarations and waivers are brought to your attention. We will upload this to the SICE Hub portal so you can get this and share it throughout your private sector partners. So the next update we'll have will be later this afternoon, probably around 6 p.m. Eastern Time. For now, I'm Dave Jones with StormCenter Communications and GeoCollaborate. Thanks for watching this update. Pay close attention to this storm, folks. It's going to be a high impact event. Thanks for watching.